Snow covered the mountains in a thick white blanket after a strong winter storm passed during the night. The air was cold and sharp. Every step on the path made a soft crunch that echoed in the silent morning. A young girl named Myra walked slowly along the small trail that led away from her village. She wore a wool coat that her mother had stitched for her and a scarf that she wrapped twice around her neck. Her breath made small clouds in the air as she walked. She was out early because she wanted to collect dry sticks before her parents woke up. With the storm ending only a few hours ago, she knew she had to move quickly before the snow covered everything again. Myra held a wooden basket close to her chest. Her hands were small but steady. Her father always said she had the heart of someone older. She liked helping her family, and she enjoyed walking alone in the morning when everything felt peaceful. Even though the cold wind brushed against her face, she felt calm. She hummed a quiet tune she heard her mother singing the night before as she walked farther from the village. The trees grew taller and the snow on them looked heavy. She bent down to pick up a dry branch hiding beneath the white surface. When she added it to her basket, she heard something strange. A faint sound reached her ears, so soft that at first she thought she imagined it. It was not the wind and not a bird. It was more like a cry. The sound was weak and short, as if coming from something tired or hurt. Myra stood still and listened again. There she heard it one more time. She looked around. The path behind her was empty. The trees ahead of her swayed slightly in the wind. The strange sound came from her right, deep inside the trees. Curiosity and worry mixed inside her. She knew her parents always told her to stay on the path, especially after a storm. But she also knew the sound did not belong to any animal she heard before. Something needed help. Her heart pushed her forward. Myra stepped off the path and entered the forest area. Her boots sank deeper in the snow here, and she moved carefully. She held her basket tightly so it would not fall. The sound came again, a little louder this time. It sounded like a dog. Not a village dog, but a bigger one. She walked faster when she reached a small clearing between the trees. She stopped with a gasp. A large canine dog lay in the snow. Snow covered parts of its vest, but she could still read the faded letters showing that it was a trained service dog. The dog lifted its head slowly when she approached. Its breathing was rough and unsteady, but its eyes stayed alert. It looked tired but strong enough to stay awake. Beside the dog lay a man, an officer. His uniform was dark but frozen in many places. Snow covered his shoulders and arms. His face was pale and he did not move at all. He looked like he collapsed during the storm and the dog had stayed. By his side through the long night, Myra felt her heart pound fast. She had seen officers from far away before when they passed near the village, but she had never been this close to one. She knelt down next to the man, careful not to startle the dog. The dog watched her but did not growl. Instead, it made a low whine and nudged the man with its nose. Myra put her hand gently on the officer's shoulder. His coat was icy cold. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked in a soft voice. There was no reaction. His eyelids did not move. His chest moved very slowly. He was alive, but his strength was running out. Myra looked at him and then at the dog. The dog shifted closer to the man, trying to keep him warm. Myra knew she had to do something. Her village was not close, but it was the only place where people could help him. She looked back at the path she came from. She could not leave him here. The storm might return. The cold was already strong enough to take more strength from him. She looked at her small hands. She was young, but she was not weak. Her father taught her to pull heavy grain bags during harvest season. She knew how to use her weight and how to drag something without hurting her back. She took a deep breath and set her basket aside. She moved to the officer's side and grabbed his arm. He was heavy, and his clothes were stiff from the cold. She leaned back and pulled with all the strength she had. The dog stood up slowly and pushed from the other side, as if understanding her plan. Inch by inch they moved him away from the deeper part of the snow. The cold wind blew again, brushing her face and making her eyes watery, but she kept going. Her arms felt warm with effort and her legs shook a little, yet she did not stop. She paused only once to rest, but then she continued dragging the man toward the trail. The dog stayed beside them, sometimes walking ahead and sometimes behind, making sure the officer did not slip back into the snow. Its loyalty was strong, and Myra felt comfort knowing she was not alone in this difficult moment. When she reached the path, she let out a long breath. The village was still far. She looked down the long white trail that led to her home. She knew she had a long journey ahead. Her parents would be worried because she had left early, but she believed they would understand once they saw the officer. Myra wiped her cold hands on her coat and tightened her grip on the officer's arm. She leaned her body back and pulled again. The dog walked beside her with slow steps. The officer's boots left a long trail in the snow behind them. Myra felt tired already, but she pushed forward with determination. She could not let him stay out here. The trees around her seemed quieter now, as if watching her effort. A few birds landed on branches, shaking the snow off. The wind changed direction and now pushed from behind, helping her move a little faster as she walked. She spoke softly to the officer even though he could not hear her. She told him he would be safe soon. She told him the village was warm and friendly. She told him her mother made strong soup that helped anyone sick or cold. The dog listened to her voice and seemed calmer. Its tail moved slowly. Myra did not feel afraid. She felt responsible. She felt like she had found a mission she had to complete. She did not know this man, but she knew she had to save him. The sky began to brighten as the sun rose behind the mountains. Light spread across the snow, making everything shine. Myra saw this as a good sign. Morning brought hope. She continued walking, step by step, pulling the officer and guiding the dog along the path. She did not stop even when her arms burned or her legs felt heavy. The sound of the village river grew closer. Houses would be visible soon. People would wake up. Help would come. Her breath became faster. But she smiled with relief when the first roof of her village came into sight through the trees. She knew she had done something important today. She knew the officer had a chance. Now, the dog barked weakly as if sharing her relief. Myra gave it a gentle pat on the head and kept moving forward. A life was saved that morning, and the journey had only just begun. Myra reached the edge of the village with the officer and the loyal canine dog beside her. The early morning light touched the roofs of the small houses, and smoke rose from a few chimneys as families started their day. She was breathing hard now, and her arms felt weak, but she did not slow down. She kept pulling the officer along the snowy path. As she passed the first house, a man chopping wood turned his head and froze. He stared at Myra, the officer, and the dog with wide eyes before dropping his axe into the snow. "Myra, what happened?" he asked and ran toward her. She could barely speak because of the long walk and the effort she had used. She pointed at the officer. "I found him in the forest. He was lying in the snow. His dog was with him. He is alive but very cold," she said between breaths. The man nodded quickly and looked toward the village center. He cupped his hands around his mouth and called loudly for help. His voice echoed and people began stepping out of their homes, wrapped in warm coats and scarves. When they saw Myra with the officer, they hurried toward her. Her father arrived first. He ran to her side with worry all over his face. He lifted the officer gently from the snow and carried him in his arms with strong steps. "Myra, you came all this way pulling him?" he asked while walking quickly toward their home. She nodded, still catching her breath. Her mother rushed from the door when she saw them approaching. She opened the door wide and moved the furniture aside to make space for the officer. Myra's father laid the man on a thick bed of blankets near the fire. Her mother placed more covers over him and checked his pulse with careful hands. The officer's breathing was slow but steady. His skin looked a little warmer now that he was inside. "We need warm water and broth." "Myra, bring the blanket from the top shelf," her mother said as she continued caring for the officer. Myra ran to fetch the blanket. When she returned, she saw the canine dog standing at the doorway. It did not enter the house. Instead, it waited patiently, head lowered, eyes focused on the man. Snow clung to its fur in small frozen patches. Myra stepped outside and gently patted the dog's head. "You helped me bring him. Come inside. It is warm here," she said softly. The dog hesitated. It took one step inside, then paused and looked back at the officer. After a moment, it walked fully into the house and settled beside the man, resting its head near his arm. More villagers entered the home to help. Some brought hot stones wrapped in cloths. Others brought warm food or extra blankets. Everyone in the village knew the cold could take a life quickly if not treated with care. They worked together to warm the officer's safety. Myra stood near the door and watched with quiet pride. She had done something important. Her father noticed her tired legs and lifted her up, placing her on a chair. "You did very well, Myra. You saved him. If you had not gone out early today, he would not be alive now," he said. Myra felt a warm feeling spread through her chest. It was not the heat from the fire. It was something stronger. She smiled at her father and then looked at the officer lying near the fire. After some time, the officer's fingers twitched. His eyelids moved. The villagers stepped back a little to give him space. The dog raised its head, ears alert, tail wagging once in relief. The officer opened his eyes slowly. He stared at the ceiling first, confused. Then he turned his head and saw the dog. A weak smile spread across his face, and he lifted his hand a little. The dog moved closer and gently touched his hand with its nose. The officer whispered something, but his voice was too weak to understand. Myra's mother placed a warm cup near his lips and helped him take a few slow sips. "You are safe here. Rest," she said in a calm voice. He blinked a few times, trying to understand where he was. When he looked at Myra, his eyes softened. He could not speak clearly yet, but he mouthed a word that Myra understood. "Thank you." The villagers watched silently, relieved that he was awake. They knew he would need time to recover, but his life was no longer in danger. The village chief arrived soon after. He was an older man with white hair and steady eyes. He inspected the officer's uniform and the badges that were still visible under the frost. He also checked the canine vest. He nodded to himself as if recognizing something important. This man must have come from the rescue post near the mountains. They have been searching for missing hikers since the storm. He may have gone too far and got caught in the snow, the chief said. Myra listened carefully. She wondered what mission the officer had been on before she found him. As the morning continued, the officer rested quietly by the fire. The dog stayed beside him, watchful and loyal. Mira brought a bowl of warm water for the dog and placed it in front of him. The dog drank slowly, then lay down with a tired sigh. After a while, the officer's breathing became stronger. He tried to lift himself but fell back gently. Myra's mother placed a hand on his shoulder. "You must not move yet. Your body is still weak from the cold. Stay here until you are strong enough to stand," she said. The officer nodded faintly. Myra sat on a stool near the fire. She wanted to stay and watch to make sure he stayed safe. Her father noticed her and handed her a warm cup of milk. "You can rest a little too. You have done more work today than many grown people," he said with a smile. Mira took a sip and warmed her hands around the cup. She kept looking at the officer. She felt a strange connection to him. She did not know his name or where he came from, but she knew she had helped him for a reason. Hours passed. The officer slept again, but now it was peaceful sleep, not the cold and dangerous kind from earlier. His face had more color. His breathing was steady. The dog rested with its nose near his hand, watching every movement. In the afternoon, a soft knock came at the door. Mira's father answered it. Two villagers stood outside, covered in snowflakes. They had just returned from the mountain path. "We saw fresh tracks. A group of officers is searching for someone. They are nearby. They should reach the village soon," one of the men said. The village chief nodded. Myra felt excitement rise in her chest. The officers' team was coming. They would be happy to know he was safe. As the sun lowered behind the mountains, a group of officers entered the village. They were dressed in heavy winter coats, and each one looked tired from the long search. When they saw the villagers guiding them toward Myra's home, they hurried. Inside the house, the officer on the floor opened his eyes again as familiar voices called his name. His team entered with relief and smiles when they saw him alive. Mira stepped aside as they knelt beside him, grateful and emotional. The dog stood up and wagged its tail with joy. The leader of the group looked at Myra and then at her parents. "We were searching for him since yesterday. Thank you for saving him. Without your daughter, he would not be here now," he said. Mira felt her cheeks grow warm. She looked at the officer who now watched her with grateful eyes. The officer raised his hand slightly toward her. His voice was quiet but clear enough. "You saved me." "Thank you," he said. Mira smiled gently. She knew this was only the beginning of the story, not the end. There was still much more to learn about what had brought the officer and his dog to the mountains, and there was much more to happen between the village and the man they had rescued from the snow. The officer stayed in Myra's home through the night. Even though his team had arrived, the chief decided it was safer for him to rest until morning. The officers from his team stayed in the village as well, helping the villagers and making sure their friends stayed warm. The dog never left the officer's side, except to drink water or eat small pieces of bread Myra placed near him. By morning, the sun rose slowly behind the snowy mountains, and the village looked peaceful under its soft light. Myra woke up early, long before her parents. She stepped quietly toward the room where the officer rested. She found him awake, propped up by soft blankets, and the dog sitting close with alert eyes. The officer looked stronger today. His face had more color and his breathing was steady. He turned to Mira and gave her a small smile. "You were awake early," he said in a gentle voice. Mira stepped closer and sat on a small stool near him. "I wanted to check if you are feeling better," she said. He nodded. "I am much better now, thanks to you," he replied. The dog wagged its tail at Mira, and she reached out to pet its head. She felt happy that the dog trusted her. It had been through a lot to keep its partner safe in the storm. Mira's father entered with a warm bowl of soup. He placed it beside the officer and greeted him with a friendly smile. "You need more strength. Eat slowly," he said. The officer thanked him and took a sip. He ate carefully, using both hands to steady the bowl. The warmth from the soup seemed to bring more life back to him. Outside, the village slowly came alive. People stepped out of their homes. Children ran across the snow to start morning chores, and women carried baskets of food or firewood. The officers who had come searching gathered near the village center, speaking quietly among themselves. Mira's curiosity grew as she saw them. She looked at the officer again. "What were you doing up in the mountains during the storm?" she asked. The officer paused for a moment. His eyes went to his dog, and then he looked back at Mira. "My team and I were searching for a missing family," he said. "They went hiking before the storm and did not return. When the storm grew stronger, they lost their way." Myra listened with full attention. "We got reports that they might be somewhere near the forest line. We split up to search faster. My dog found tracks. We followed them, but the storm became too strong. Snow covered everything. I lost my balance on a slope and fell. My radio broke when I landed. I could not call my team. My dog tried to pull me up the hill, but the snow was too deep. I told him to stay with me until help arrived." Myra's heart tightened as she imagined the cold night he had endured. "Your dog stayed with you the whole time," she said softly. The officer nodded proudly. "Yes, he never leaves my side. He kept me awake for as long as he could. He kept me warm too. If he had left, I would not be alive today." Myra stroked the dog's fur again. She felt even more connected to the animal now. It was brave and loyal. Myra's mother entered the room with fresh blankets and smiled kindly at the officer. "You will need at least 2 more days to recover fully," she said. "Your body went through a lot." He nodded respectfully. I understand. I am grateful for your care. The morning passed quietly. The officer rested while the villagers made sure his team had food and warm clothing. Mira helped her mother cook and bring food to the officers outside. By midday, the officer felt strong enough to sit up fully. He called Mira to him. Would you like to see something? He asked. She nodded eagerly. He pointed to the vest worn by his dog. Mira leaned closer and saw small pockets on the side. The officer opened one of them and pulled out a small round badge. The badge had a symbol of a mountain and two figures holding a rope. Around the edges were tiny carved letters. This is a rescue badge, he said. It shows that our unit helps people lost in dangerous places. You deserve this for saving me. Mira's eyes grew wide with surprise. I cannot take this. I did not do much, she said. The officer shook his head. You did more than many grown people could do. You were brave, strong, and you did not give up. You saved my life. This badge is for someone who shows courage. He placed the badge gently in her hand. It felt warm and heavy, like it carried meaning far greater than its size. Mira stared at it with wonder. Her father entered the room and saw the badge in her hand. He gave the officer a grateful nod. She will keep it safe, he said. In the afternoon, the village chief invited the officer and his team to the meeting hall. Mira went along with her parents. The hall was warm and filled with friendly voices. People brought bread, tea, and warm blankets. The officer sat on a chair near the fire, and the dog lay beside him calmly. The chief began speaking. We welcome you to our village. You came here searching for lost hikers. We admire your work. We also give thanks to Mira, who saved one of your team in the storm. Everyone looked toward Mira. She felt shy and moved closer to her mother. The officer stood slowly, leaning slightly on her father for support. When the room grew quiet, he looked at Mira. If not for her, I would not be here. I owe my life to this brave child and her kind heart. I also owe gratitude to the village that cared for me and my dog. His words brought smiles across the room. Mira felt her cheeks warm again after the gathering ended. Mira stepped outside to breathe in the fresh air. The snow sparkled under the afternoon sun. She held the rescue badge tightly in her hand. The officer walked outside too, supported gently by one of his teammates. He approached Mira with a calm smile. There is something else you should know, he said. The missing family we were searching for might still be on the mountain. If the storm buried their tracks, we need to plan the next search carefully. Mira's eyes widened. They are still out there, yes, he said. But now that I am awake, we can try again. The dog barked softly, as if agreeing. Mira looked toward the tall mountains in the distance. They seemed peaceful now, but she remembered how dangerous they became the day before. Can I help in any way, she asked. The officer smiled gently. You already helped in the most important way. You saved the person who leads the search. When I am strong enough, we will continue. For now, you should stay with your family. Mira nodded, but inside her heart she felt a pull. She wanted to help more. She wanted the missing family to be found safe. The next day, the officer regained more strength. His dog stayed close and watched his every movement. The team planned their next search route with maps spread on the table. The villagers offered to guide them to safer paths because they knew the mountain's shape better than anyone. Mira watched all of this with deep interest. She listened carefully to the discussions. She held her badge close, feeling proud but also hopeful that the missing family would be found. As evening came, the officer stepped outside with his dog and looked at the mountains. Mira approached him quietly. You will find them, right? She asked. He looked down at her with steady eyes. With the help of your village, I believe we will. The wind carried his words gently through the air. Mira felt warmth in her heart again. The story was not finished. It was leading to something bigger. There was still a rescue ahead and the mountains were waiting. Morning light fell gently across the village as snowflakes drifted from the rooftops. The air was cold but calm and the sky looked soft and pale blue. Inside Mira's home, the fire burned brightly and warm air filled every corner of the room. The officer now rested on a small bed made of thick blankets. His face no longer looked pale and the strength in his hands was returning. His breathing was steady and calm. His eyes were open and full of life again. His dog sat beside him with its head resting on the edge of the bed as if guarding him even now. Mira entered the room with a small bowl of warm soup. Her steps were light, but her mind was busy with thoughts. She had seen the officer slowly get better over the past days. Each small improvement made her happy. She felt proud when he tried to sit up or take a sip of water or speak a little more clearly. Today he looked stronger than any day before. Her mother followed behind her with a blanket folded in her hands. Mira whispered a small warning to her father that the officer was awake. Her father walked in quietly but with a gentle smile on his face. He had grown respectful of the officer after learning how he and his dog had tried to protect the mountain road during the storm. The officer turned his head when he heard them enter. His voice still sounded weak but warm when he spoke. "You have helped me more than I can ever thank you." Mira smiled and set the bowl near him. The dog lifted its head and wagged its tail. Mira reached out and touched the dog's head softly. "And this brave one stayed with you through the storm. He never left your side." The officer nodded and placed a hand on the dog's back. "He is loyal and strong. I trained him myself, but I never expected him to face such a long night alone. I am grateful he survived." Mira's father took a seat near the fire and asked how he felt. The officer said his body felt tired but better. His arms felt lighter and his chest no longer burned when he breathed. He had been able to stand for a short moment earlier with help from Mira's mother. That alone showed how much progress he had made. Snow had begun to melt outside and the storm days were now behind the village. The path to the mountain would soon open again. The officer knew he would have to return to his work, but he also knew he would carry this family's kindness in his heart for the rest of his life. After finishing the warm soup, he tried to sit up. Myra quickly placed a cushion behind him and helped him get comfortable. She was gentle and careful. Her small hands worked with surprising strength. "You are very brave and very kind," he said. Mira shook her head and said she had only done what she could. Anyone would have helped him, but deep inside she knew that many people might have been too afraid to go into the forest that morning. She had followed the sound because she felt someone needed her. That thought warmed her more than the fire. Later that afternoon, the officer asked if he could step outside for a short walk. He wanted to feel the fresh air and stretch his legs. Myra's father agreed, but walked with him to make sure he did not fall. Myra and the dog followed closely. The snow crunched under their feet, and the sunlight bounced softly off the white ground. The village looked peaceful. Smoke rose from chimneys. Children played near the well. A few villagers waved when they saw the officer. They had already heard the story of how he had been found in the forest and brought to safety. Some of them came forward to greet him with warm smiles. The officer walked slowly, but each step felt like progress. He breathed deeply. His dog stayed close, watching each movement with watchful eyes. Myra walked beside them, feeling proud that she had helped him reach this day. When they returned to the house, the officer sat down and rested. Myra's father offered him a place to stay until he was fully ready to return to duty. The officer agreed and thanked them again and again. As the days passed, he grew stronger. He spent time outside helping Mira's father fix small things around the house. He taught Mira how to call the dog using gentle hand signals. She enjoyed every moment of it, and the dog seemed happy too. The house filled with laughter and quiet joy. One evening, as they sat together near the fire, the officer spoke about the night he had collapsed. He explained that he had been checking the mountain road to warn travelers before the storm hit. The storm had arrived earlier than expected, and he had been caught in the deep snow. He had fallen, and the cold had taken his strength. His dog had tried to pull him but could not move him far. They had stayed together through the night waiting for help. Mira listened with wide eyes. She felt a deep respect for him. She had not known how dangerous that night had been. Her mother placed an arm around her shoulders and gave her a soft smile. A few days later, the officer said he was ready to return to his station. The snow had cleared enough and he felt strong enough to walk. Myra's heart tightened a little because she had grown used to him being there. But she also knew he had work to do and people who depended on him. The officer packed his things and checked the dog's vest. The dog wagged its tail and seemed ready to go. Myra's family stood with him outside their home. Snowflakes drifted gently from the sky and the air smelled clean and cold. Before leaving, the officer knelt down to Myra's height. "I will never forget what you did for me," he said. "You saved my life and you helped my partner too." Mira felt shy but happy. She nodded and placed her hand on the dog's head for the last time. The dog leaned into her touch as if giving her a silent promise. The officer stood and shook Mira's father's hand. He thanked her mother for caring for him as if he were family. Then he turned to Myra one more time. "If you ever need help, you can come to our station. I will always be there for you." Myra smiled brightly and waved as he and the dog began their walk down the village path. The dog glanced back at her for a moment before following its handler. As they disappeared behind the trees, Myra felt a soft warmth inside her chest. She had not only saved someone, but had gained a friend who would always remember her. She turned and walked back into her home with her parents. The fire crackled quietly. The snow outside was peaceful again. And in her heart, Myra knew that kindness had created a story that would stay with her forever. Morning arrived with a calm sky, but the mountain peaks still held heavy layers of snow. The officer stood outside Myra's home with his dog beside him. He was stronger now. His steps were steady, and his breath no longer shook from the cold. The villagers gathered around him and his team, ready to help with the search for the missing family. Myra stood near her father, holding her rescue badge in her coat pocket. She watched the officer as he studied the map laid out on a wooden table near the village center. His dog sniffed the ground, searching for familiar scents. The officers gathered close, pointing at mountain routes and discussing safe paths. The village chief stepped forward. "You must avoid the north slope. The snow there is loose. If someone steps wrong, the ground may slide. Use the south path instead. It is longer, but safer." The officer nodded. Double quotes, "Thank you. We will follow your guidance. We cannot risk another accident." Mira listened carefully. Her father looked at her with a small smile. "You want to go with them, do you not?" he asked softly. Mira lowered her eyes. "I want to help. I want the missing family to come home." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "You have already helped more than you know. Let the grown people handle the dangerous part. You stay in the village and wait for news." Myra nodded, but her heart was still restless. She wanted everyone safe. The officer approached Mira before leaving. He knelt down, and his dog sat beside him. We will search carefully. The mountains are calmer today. With luck, we will find the family. You must stay here and keep hope alive. That is important too. Myra nodded again. The officer smiled and touched the dog's vest. He will find the trail. He always does. With that, the search team prepared to leave. The villagers handed them warm drinks, ropes, lanterns, and food for the journey. The officer's dog stood proudly, ready for work. The team walked toward the mountain path, leaving deep footprints in the snow. Myra watched them until they disappeared behind the trees. Hours passed. Myra helped her mother with chores, but her mind stayed with the officer and his team. She kept imagining the missing family somewhere in the mountains, waiting for help. The thought made her chest tight. As the sun moved higher, the wind changed direction. A cold breeze swept through the village, carrying a strange feeling. Myra looked up at the sky. Thick clouds were forming again, slower than before but heavy in color. Her father noticed too. It may snow again tonight, he said. The team must hurry. Myra went to the meeting hall where some villagers gathered. They kept a small fire burning and took turns scanning the mountain path with binoculars. Everyone felt the weight of the moment. Time moved slowly. Finally, in the afternoon, Myra heard a distant bark from the mountain trail. It was faint but familiar. She ran outside. The villagers followed her gaze. The dog's voice carried through the cold air. They found something, Myra said with excitement. A wave of hope spread across the village. The chief signaled a small group of villagers to prepare in case help was needed. Myra remained at the front of the village path, eyes fixed on the mountain. Minutes later, she saw movement between the trees. The officer's dog appeared first, running quickly but carefully. Behind the dog came the officer and 2 other team members. They looked tired but determined, and behind them walked 3 figures wrapped in blankets, held steady by the officers, the missing family, a man, a woman, and a young boy. Myra felt tears in her eyes as the villagers rushed forward. Some carried blankets, others carried warm drinks. The villagers gently guided the family toward the village center. The officer approached. Myra with a tired smile. We found them in a small cave near the ridge. They stayed there during the storm. They were cold and hungry but alive, he said. Myra looked at the family. The young boy held tightly onto his mother's hand. His face was pale, but his eyes were bright with relief. The officer continued. If we had waited another day, they might not have survived. The cold at night is too strong. Your village's help made the search faster, and your rescue badge in your pocket reminded me why we had to keep going. Myra touched the badge gently. I am glad they are safe. The officer placed his hand on her shoulder. You gave me strength to continue. Remember that. The village turned into a place of warm activity. People gave the missing family food and warm clothes. The chief instructed some villagers to prepare a room in the meeting hall for the family to rest in. The officer's team joined them, making sure the family had everything they needed. The officer and his dog sat near the fire. Myra brought them a warm bowl of soup. He accepted it gratefully. You work like a member of a rescue team already, he said. Myra smiled shyly. I only do small things. Small things can save lives, the officer replied. As evening settled, new snow began to fall, soft and slow. It covered the roofs gently and shone under the lanterns lit around the village. The missing family finally slept peacefully, safe among the villagers. The officer leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. Later, the chief called the villagers and officers together for a short gathering. Everyone stood around the fire outside the meeting hall. The chief spoke in a clear voice. Today, we celebrate the safe return of the missing family. We also honor our guests from the rescue team who worked bravely through danger. And we thank Myra, whose courage helped save one of their own. Without her, this mission would not have been possible. The villagers nodded and clapped softly. Myra felt warmth spread through her heart. She did not like attention, but she understood that this moment was important. The officer stepped forward. I want to say something too, he said. My dog and I survived the storm because of Myra. Her courage gave me another chance to continue this rescue. I hope one day she joins a rescue team. She has the heart for it. Myra looked down with a shy smile. The dog barked in approval. Her father wrapped an arm around her shoulders. We are proud of you, he whispered. The night grew colder, but the fire kept everyone warm. Lanterns glowed softly, and the village felt full of gratitude. The officer's team talked quietly with the villagers, planning their return home for the next morning before heading inside. The officer approached Myra one last time. Tomorrow, my team and I must return, but I will never forget what you did, and neither will my dog. The dog pressed its head against Myra's hand. She bent down and hugged it gently. You and your dog are always welcome here, she said. The officer nodded with warm eyes. And you will always be welcome with us. Remember your badge. It is the beginning of something good. Myra watched him walk away toward the meeting hall where the rescued family slept. Snowflakes fell around her, soft like feathers. She felt peaceful, but the story was not over yet. There was still one more day, one more part of the journey. And the final goodbye was waiting.